So be honest, are you dropping everything the moment your ex texts or calls? Are you secretly sat there waiting for the next text or call to come from your ex? Are you dropping everything when they do eventually call? This over availability drains your energy and it creates an unspoken contract that doesn't benefit you or your partner. It leaves you exhausted, resentful, and stuck in a cycle that ultimately destroys attraction. So in this video, I'm going to show you how this pattern pushes your partner or your ex-partner further away. We're going to talk about how to break free from this pattern, reclaim your self-respect, and turn this draining cycle into a pathway for rebuilding connection and confidence. So it may feel like the natural thing to do. When you're trying to repair a relationship, it may feel like you should be dropping everything in order to attend to your partner or ex-partner's needs. You know, if you have realized that you've not done things the right way or not done things in an effective way and the relationship has fallen apart, it can feel normal to overcompensate and to drop everything and become ultra available, ultra attentive in order to try to rebuild the relationship back. But what if this constant availability is the very thing that is driving your partner or pushing your ex-partner further away? Now, this may sound counterintuitive at first. After all, being there for someone is supposed to bring you closer, right? But the reality is that over availability, it damages all relationships by creating emotional imbalances that destroy respect, drains your energy, and it erodes attraction. So let me break this down a little bit for you. Constantly being on standby, especially when a relationship has started to break apart or maybe you've even broken up, waiting for a text or a phone call, ready to drop everything, this creates enormous mental fatigue. What happens is that you end up living on their schedule, prioritizing their needs over your own, and leaves no room for you to recharge. So over time, this leaves you emotionally depleted, and that exhaustion doesn't just affect how you feel, it impacts how you show up when it comes to the important points in the relationship. When you're running on empty, resentment creeps in and your ability to engage meaningfully shrinks. And this imbalance weakens the foundation of the relationship. It's kind of creates cracks spreading through the foundation. But not only that, it also impacts respect. Over availability sends a subtle message that your time and your priorities aren't valuable. If attraction has been lost in the relationship, you becoming over available, bending over backwards and saying yes to everything, it trains your partner or ex-partner to expect it, and they stop noticing the effort behind your actions. Instead, what happens is they assume that it's a given. They ask something from you and you say yes. It's an expectation. Ultimately, this drives attraction down because it shows that you're not willing to respect your own time and you're letting everybody else dictate what you should do with that time. Ultimately, your partner or ex-partner becomes less likely to respect what you do and don't do because ultimately you are showing the world that you are kind of a pushover. You're saying yes to everything and you just want to please people rather than actually figuring out a way to cultivate a win-win, something that benefits you and the person that you're wanting to and the relationship as well. Ultimately, if you remove the support beams from the building that you're living in, eventually it collapses. What happens is that you relinquish any control over your own autonomy, your own life, and the mutual respect within the relationship becomes more about you becoming a yes person. You are fueled by your partner's needs and you write a subconscious contract that you over accommodate what your partner is asking for. So this starts as people pleasing and turns into a toxic imbalance. And a lot of people can get themselves into this position where they're in this toxic imbalance in the relationship and they start to blame their partner. But ultimately, this is a unconscious contract that you are part of. If you are doing this and not giving any sort of pushback, which we'll talk about in a second, then you are writing this contract. So you cannot blame your partner or ex-partner for asking something and you saying yes all the time. And cultivating this pattern, it doesn't just affect how people treat you, it changes how you treat yourself. Over availability pushes you into what we call self-abandonment. So think about the times you've ignored your own feelings, your own values in order to keep someone happy. How often have you sacrificed your comfort or well-being for other people's? So little by little, you lose touch with your own self and give away that to a partner or ex-partner. You become a diluted version of yourself because you created a contract that you can't sustain. And ultimately, over time, when this authenticity is missing because you're giving this away, the connection weakens. So even if your partner doesn't consciously realize it, all these patterns, this drained energy, this loss of respect, this emotional self-abandonment, forms a destructive cycle. The more you give, the less people appreciate it. The less valuable your time is perceived to be. And the less valuable your time seems to be, the more you end up giving to other people in order to try to fix things. You feel like your time is so unvaluable that you end up trying to give more. But attraction thrives on balance, respect, and value, all of which over-availability disrupts. So that leaves the question, how do you break free? Well, it all starts with resetting the pattern. Breaking away from over-availability feels kind of risky at first, especially if you're trying to repair a relationship. But it's actually about regaining your own self-control. When you stop overextending yourself, you end up creating the space for you to value yourself and for your partner to value the time and energy that you do give. And this is where a lot of people talk about boundaries. So I'm actually not going to talk about boundaries in this video. If you want to deeper dive into my opinion on boundaries, I'll leave a link up above and in the description down below. But this is more about cultivating a clearer verbal contract, an emotional contract, and cultivating a win-win between yourself and your partner. And this in itself is an act of self-respect that ends up transforming relationships. So a lot of people think that gaining your self-respect is all about creating boundaries, saying no. This is the key to reclaiming your power within a relationship. Ultimately, if things are feeling out of control, saying no is kind of like gripping onto the steering wheel of a car that's spinning out of control. This feels like you steering yourself out of the chaos with these boundaries, creating clear lines that protect your energy and your sense of self. But when it comes to over-availability, creating a boundary, just simply putting down a hard line in the sand, feels like it's powerful. It feels like it's creating an impression and valuing your time. The problem when it comes to just saying no is that your partner still has that expectation. Especially if you've been a people pleaser within the relationship, suddenly saying no can come across like you are being obstinate. You are just pushing back for the sake of pushing back. You're overcompensating for the way that you acted in the meantime. So it doesn't actually create more value of your time because your partner or ex-partner probably doesn't see the value in your time at this moment anyway. So this doesn't create value. What it does is it seems like you have low value. You have not shown that you are valuable, and then you're pretending that your time is worth a lot by saying no. So this may feel like it's the right thing to do, and there's going to be a lot of people online that are going to tell you, set down a boundary. That is how you regain your power. That is how you prove that you have worth and value, but it doesn't, because your partner or ex-partner is going to be looking at the evidence of how valuable your time has been historically. They're not going to change their mind in one instance. So what can you do to stop becoming over-available? Well, this is where having a full conversation and actually discussing it with your partner or ex-partner becomes crucial. Being able to infer that your time is valuable and it's a limited resource without overcompensating and trying to forcefully prove that your time is valuable. So step one is making sure that you are able to bring value. Make sure that you are increasing your own inherent value and the value that you can bring to a relationship, to other people. Make sure that you are constantly growing. You can't simply pretend that you have value and that you bring value to a relationship without constantly cultivating that within yourself. So the first step is to focus on creating the high-level values that you bring to a relationship, being able to communicate well, being able to provide the self-actualization values that many partners don't provide. Next, if you are cultivating real value within yourself, then that means that your time will, as a result of that, become limited. You know, if you are on a constant self-growth journey, you're going to be doing a lot of things in order to improve yourself. You know, just the standard things such as going to the gym, studying, growing your career, all of these things take time and energy. A lot of this is cultivating that value, being able to practice your communication style, being able to change your mindsets, manage your emotions. All of these things take time. So as a result of growing yourself, this actually, as an emergence, limits the time that you have naturally. And as a result of this, if your partner does contact you and is asking for you to do something, help out, you're not artificially saying no. You're not pretending that you're not interested. You're not artificially limiting the amount of time that you have. You'll naturally have a limited amount of slots in your life to be able to deal with that. So this means that you won't be pretending when you are saying, let me figure out a time to see if I can make this work. You won't simply be pretending to find a slot in a blatantly empty calendar. You will actually have limited time because your time is now valued. Your priorities have shifted where you're putting yourself first. And putting yourself first doesn't mean not looking out for other people, not being there for other people, but putting yourself first is kind of like that saying where they say, put your own oxygen mask on first, then put on others. Making sure that you're prioritizing your own mental health, your own emotions, your own growth first, so that you are there to be able to show up in the right ways for the people that you want to be there for. This means it will become slightly more difficult for you to figure out a way to make it work, right? This isn't about just saying no to try to be manipulative or control them. This will become a natural result of you making sure that you are cultivating that value within yourself. But then it becomes a matter of learning how to cultivate a win-win. In so many situations, we see scenarios as win-lose. So let's say you do something for your partner. We see it as, if I do something for somebody else, then that means that I lose out. Or if I do something for myself, then my partner loses out. But that is not the way that things have to be. There is always a way of creating a win-win where you can figure out a time, a place, an activity, whatever it is, that is a win-win for both you and your partner or ex-partner. This takes more time, it takes more effort, but ultimately, this is about cultivating mutual respect and mutuality within the relationship. So for example, this could be, yes, I can help out with that. Can we do this on a Tuesday rather than a Monday? Because Monday is my busy day and I may be exhausted. This is a win-win because what you're saying is, hey, I want to be there, I want to be present, I want to help out, but I want to do it on a day that I'm actually going to have the brain power to do it. What this does is this infers that you do have value and you are not just putting your own needs on the back burner and dropping everything in order to accommodate other people. You're figuring out the win-win in how to make this work. What this does is this cultivates your self-respect, but also the mutual respect with your partner because they can see that you are trying to make it work. You're just trying to figure out how. But there are going to be times naturally where you're not going to be able to help out, or it's going to be very, very difficult to help out in these situations. And there's going to be times when you may have to say no. And again, this isn't from a place of manipulation or trying to forcefully set down some boundary. But in these instances, the way that you handle it is going to be crucial. Because if you do have to say no, it's about showing respect and validation towards the other person's feelings, your partner's feelings or your ex's feelings, whilst also staying strong in your decision to ultimately have to say no. So for example, something along the lines of, I know that this may come across as me trying to be powerful and trying to turn you down or turn you away, especially, when things are the way they are. But I'm not trying to do that. I've really thought about this and I'm not sure whether there's a way that I can make this work, especially in such short notice. But, I don't want to just say no straight off the bat and make that final decision. I guess I wanted to hear your thoughts. What do you think? Am I missing something here? What this does is this validates your partner's feelings. It shows that you are wanting to try and make an effort, but you can't see a way around this situation. But what it also does is it shows that you are still willing to be wrong. You are still willing to know that you don't know what you don't know, and perhaps you're missing something. And this throws it out to your partner to be able to point out a blind spot that you may be missing. What this does is it shows still that you've thought about it. You made the effort and you can't quite see a way around it. You validated your partner's feelings, but you're also opening the floor for further discussion just in case. And what may happen during this time is that you may get some form of resistance or pushback. This is normal, but this discomfort in these situations is always going to be temporary. So your partner or ex-partner may be upset with you not being able to make this work, not being able to say yes to it right now. But if you're coming from a good place, at the back of their mind, they're going to be able to still feel that respect for your time, for your energy, and that you're still taking the time to validate their feelings at the same time. And as you go forward, think about this conserved energy. Every time you don't just drop everything and do whatever your partner is asking. You end up saying yes to yourself. You end up knowing what your priorities are and making sure that you're putting them first so that you're not derailing yourself again and becoming a people pleaser and just saying yes to everything. And this is what so many of my members have found, is that once you start to cultivate what we call emotional safety and you build that to a very, very high level over time, then being able to provide intellectual intimacy, which is building that self-respect, but also the respect for your partner and cultivating a powerful system that works for both of you, becomes a lot easier. But it all must be built on top of building emotional safety first. And that's what so many of my members have found, is that as they start to build this intellectual intimacy, they're able to cultivate a system for the relationship that works for both of them and their partner, especially during reconciliation, being able to lead the relationship forward in a way that it is mutually beneficial. And if you do want to start your journey and join us, then sign up for my relationship bootcamp. You'll learn the same steps and tools that all of my members use to start turning their relationships around, reconciling and rebuilding them to a very high level. Just click on the link in the description to grab your spot. But like I said, ultimately this is all built on top of emotional safety. You cannot build intellectual intimacy without having a very strong foundation of emotional safety first. I've actually done a much deeper dive on emotional safety, which I'll link to on the screen. Emotional safety is being able to build an environment where you are both free to express your feelings without fear of negative repercussions. This takes time and effort. But building this foundation is going to allow you to start cultivating this mutuality, this respect, and stop becoming over-available like you have done in the past. So I'll leave you with that deeper dive video on emotional safety, and I will see you over there.